Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the KSM show. The more you see it, the better you like it, man. Give it up, give it up, give it up. Now my next guest is somebody we all know. I think most of us do know. But let me play some games with you. I want to see if you can recognize this man in this ID picture. Take a look at this. I see you didn't get it, but he was actually in jail. He was detained by Sergeant Doe in Liberia. A Ghana man. What was he doing in Liberia anyway? He'll tell us, but take a look at this, if you know him. You still don't know him, eh? Many don't know him. Oh. This man has been to jail. He was in Liberia. He started hustling at the age of 16. And he's here today because he's a very prominent figure now with us. And his story is that we must be persistent and we must keep focused and we'll accomplish whatever we want to accomplish. Put your hands together. Welcome, Dr. Leone Thompson. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Good to have you, my brother.
Thank you.
All right. Show some love one more time, man.
Thank you.
Doc, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Finally. I made it.
I've been trying to get
I've
together.
achieved a lot.
But honestly, well, for those of you who don't know, he's also the chairman of the National
Director
General. I'm sorry.
Of the National Development Plan.
National Development Plan. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. But
sure.
I want people to know what they don't know about you, man.
That's good.
Yeah, I want them to know what they know
share.
about you.
Yeah.
You have a history in Carrier, where you...
Yeah, I was in Carrier for a while. I was there for a year, class 2 actually.
Wow.
I went to Ahimfie Primary School, actually at the Chief's Palace.
At the Chief's Palace?
Yeah, we used to sit on benches on the veranda there. That was class 2.
That was...
Yeah, class 2. Much later I found out that they have moved it away.
Wow,
there,
wow.
But it was good.
Yeah.
Recently when I met President Kufuor, we actually talked about that. That's his hometown.
That's his hometown,
so he gave me some background, how his grandfather brought... I was living with my mother's cousin, who was in charge of the Anglican Church then. So President Kufuor explained to me how his own grandfather brought the Anglican Church then.
Give you the history.
Oh, yes. I really enjoyed it.
Wow.
Yep,
but, you know, and you've been through quite a bit, you know.
Oh, yes,
I mean,
yes.
What happened at the age of 16? That's when you...
Yeah, that's when I decided to leave home. I had just had it. I mean, at the time, I had passed the common entrance twice. And still, because my parents were divorced, there were all sorts of issues that kind of prevented me from going to secondary school. My mom tried to help later on, but didn't really, help much. I tried to go to a private secondary, it just didn't work out. So one night, I just decided to leave home. I just took 4 books.
Wow. You love the books?
Yes, I love my books. I used to go to the Ashanti Regional Library, spend time going to Edum. So I really had a love affair with books. So when I was leaving, the only things I could think of were books and nothing else. Yeah.
So you took 4 books?
I took 4 books.
Do you remember the books you took?
I remember the names of 2. One was English Without Tears. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes,
and the other one was Student's Companion.
Wow.
Yeah. Those were the only books I took. And then so I just took the train from Kumasi to Accra. I didn't really know Accra that well because I was born and raised mostly in Kumasi. But I took the train. It was packed that night. So I actually had to sit on the stairs, wait for people to get off, and eventually got there. Came to Accra, wandered about a little like a crazy boy.
So in your mind, where were you going?
I wasn't quite sure what lay ahead. What I knew was I didn't want the situation where I didn't go to secondary school. Because my teacher, for example, Tukwe Friya, who still lives in Kumasi, by the way, he's actually a family friend now, wrote to my dad, who was then living with his new wife in Agona Street, and he said, listen, your kid is good. Make sure that he goes. My dad couldn't even be bothered. And yet I had this hunger for knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep going until I find what I want, but I definitely not going back.
So you hit Accra?
So I hit Accra, stayed with a friend near the stadium for a while, still exploring my options. So then I took state transport through Ivory Coast, from Ivory Coast to Liberia. Lived in Liberia for a while, hustled, and so forth, homeless. I actually had the brother there, but then later on I decided to move out at 17 because I really wanted my independence. The problem was that the guy I moved in with They didn't tell me that his rent was long overdue. So I get there, a couple of weeks later, I come home and my stuff are out there.
Yeah, evicted.
You've been thrown out.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there wondering, damn, what should I do? Should I go back to my brother and beg, or should I just hustle myself? I'm like, okay, I will just hustle.
Wow.
So I'm just sitting there wondering, just or whatever, what's going on. And then I fall asleep. Right there, there's a building. I don't know if you've ever been to Monrovia. It's called the E.J. Roy building. Back then, it was a very elegant building. I was there recently. They blew it up and all that. So there I was, homeless, sleeping. And I thought I was dreaming that I was hearing voices when I was sleeping, only to open my eyes and find police and military people on patrol threatening to pick me up for vagrancy.
Wow.
I was like, man, you can't do it. I suppose they looked at me and figured, well, this guy is really not harmful. So I pleaded with them and they let me go.
Let you go.
Yeah, so I slept. Well, I went back and lay down. I'm not sure that I slept. You couldn't sleep after you had that experience. But the following day, I actually then had to hustle, get a place to sleep, talk to a friend who talked to a friend who talked to a friend, and they finally got me a room in a house. It was the only room that they didn't want to use, because the foundation wasn't very good, and so it was actually treading water. Every 3 days or so, you had to scoop the water out. So we had to get like concrete blocks, put them there, put wooden planks on them, and that was my room for like 3 or 4 months. That's where I was. I used my books, a pillow, and so forth and so on, until I eventually decided to make my next move. A friend, because don't forget, my objective when I left was to go to secondary school. That's all. I didn't even know what PhD and all those things, just go to school. So in the meantime, I had befriended people who were already in secondary school and had a sense of what they were studying. So I bought all the books that they were using and then teaching myself in anticipation of the day when I'll go to secondary school. Then a friend of mine went to Sierra Leone and came back and gave me this glorious portrait of secondary schools in Sierra Leone. Between Form 1 and Form 5, they wore neckties and they wear straw hats. Upper 6, they wear, I think between Form 1 and Form 5, they wore beret. And then upper 6, they wore straw hats and very fancy stuff. So there and then, I was on the next vehicle to Sierra Leone. Oh, yes. I just headed to Sierra Leone. And I remember that day because I was so hopeful and yet petrified. Because there, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what lay ahead of me. And I started in the vehicle. In fact, I was never hungry. I just took a few sips of water that day. And we went, there's a border town called Bo. So when I got to the Liberian side, I said, well, I'm a Sierra Leonean going to Sierra Leone. When I got to the Sierra Leonean side, I said, I'm a Liberian going to Liberia. So I managed to cross that without any papers. And then we arrived at night, close to 10:30, 11 p.m. I didn't know anybody. So I simply walked from door to door, complete strangers. Yeah, knocking on the doors of complete strangers. The first two kind of turned me down, but the third person, actually, whom I remain grateful for till this day, was a blind old widow, actually.
Wow.
And she took me in. I slept the first night with her grandchildren in the same room. The following day, we talked where I came from, and she kind of took a liking to me. So it actually gave me a room in her house. So within months, I've moved from being homeless to actually having my own room. She introduced me to a daughter who was married to a police officer in the next town called Kenema. I went there, visited them. Sierra Leone itself is a naturally beautiful place. Beautiful waterfalls, rivers. So I kind of took a like. They even found a secondary school for me to go. But then 3 days or so before, again, I did my calculations and I said, no. I want to be independent. Because once you stay too long, then it becomes a problem. And now they got a secondary school for you, you become obligated and all that. So I talked to the lady. I said, well, I want to keep on going. I want to go to Freetown now to go and seek my own elder, kind of stand on my own. She pleaded. I said, no, I got to go. So she finally gave up and allowed me to go. She gave me some money, left, went to Freetown. There, too, I knew nobody. But for some reason, I kept arriving at night. So I arrived in Freetown at night, saw a tailor shop, walked in there and asked the guy if there was any cheap place I could stay. And he said, oh, there's one over there. So I went there. I found out much later that it was actually a brothel. Oh, because it was a very busy place, trust me. It was busy while I was sleeping. But I was so tired and so preoccupied with my own thoughts, I didn't really bother with what was going on.
So you could sleep?
Oh, yes. They have some 2x4 beds with hook and other, but who cares? At least I wasn't sleeping outside. I wasn't sleeping outside. But then I had what I call now, and I'm writing a book, so I'll elaborate on those, what I call the Damascus experience. from Saul to Paul kind of situation.
Yeah.
I slept well. Then the following morning, I just decided to take a walk in Freetown. I've always loved libraries and books, as I said. So there was a library there. Went there, spent some time. Very beautiful public library. And then I walked down the road and saw the sign of a newspaper. That it was called We Own. We Own, Creole is a very beautiful language. We Own means our own. It was a newspaper.
No, we own.
Yeah, we own, our own. And it's spelled W-E as one word, and then Y-O-N-E as the other. So I walked in there. I was quite daring. And I now look back and see the kinds of things that the basic education in Ghana actually did for me. One, it gave me confidence. So I could just walk in there and say, I want to be a reporter. And the lady, I still can see her, very skinny, beautiful, pretty, very sweet. I expected her to tell me, listen, kid, get lost, get lost. We're busy, we're serious here. But then she didn't say that. She said, have you ever worked as a journalist? I said, no. Do you have any academic qualifications? I said, no, but I used to win essay competitions back in Ghana, which was true. I used to do that in Agunas Radio and Kumasi and other. Said, okay, sit down. I'm going to talk to the editor. So she goes, by the now I'm actually shaking. I'm wondering, because I couldn't believe my luck. This was my first full day in Sierra Leone, in Freetown. And I'm getting an interview for a job.
Wow.
So she goes in there, comes out, and says the editor-in-chief wants to see you. Now I'm really petrified. I don't know, what the hell am I going to say? So I go in there, put my hands behind me. You know, the Ghanaian will be very respectful and all that. He talks to me and so forth and so on. I suppose I made an impression on him, because then he asked me to go and bring a writing sample.
Wow.
Oh, man. I couldn't believe my luck.
Wow.
I just went.
Do you have any samples?
I had no sample, but I went and bought a pad
and put something down
and wrote an imaginary accident story. I still remember very well.
Really?
An accident story and what the inspector said and so forth and so on. So I went back to the brothel, spent the night. Then the following day, I took the story in. So I'm standing there, looking at him, reading the story. There was a lady sitting across his desk from him. Then looking at his face as it was changing.
Yeah.
And then finally he says, I think you're a good writer.
Wow.
We can use you. And then the lady then turns around and says, I think he's cute too. I'm hustling him, man. I don't want any shit on my money. This is serious business. So
let me keep my agenda. You know?
So right there and then, actually, he called in the senior reporter and said, listen, take this boy in there.
Whoa.
Yes.
Show some love, man. Whoa. And he started working as a reporter.
Yes, I was employed as a reporter in training. And I still remember my pay was 30 leons, which wasn't much even back then. But I was more happy to be employed than the 30. Yes, in 2 days, I got employed. Where I imagine you have people who had even finished university, who had been there for months, and they couldn't get employed. And I show up in Freetown in 2 days. I still remember the name of the senior. His name was Kaba. So he called me, he took me to the newsroom, introduced me to everyone. At the time, they had a playwright called John Carbo, who also was there. He used to work part-time there. So that's when I started. But then I had to find out where to sleep, because there was no way I could live on 30 leons. So I went back to the brothel and then back to the tailor shop. And I told the guy, listen, here's my story. I just got a job. The 30 leons, I doubt very much it can even cover my transportation. So I need a place to stay. And he says, well, I can help you, but you can sleep on the floor in my tailor shop with my guys. Wow. So that's where I started. So for a year, I was actually living in the tailor shop and going to work. None of my colleagues actually knew that I was actually living in the tailor shop. But it was a good experience. In the evenings, I would sit there, help them with their sewing and all that. So I actually got to learn to sew a little bit. Yes.
So in the meantime, show some love, man. So in the meantime, were you touching base with Ghana?
No. This is something happened. The night I was leaving, I told my mom. My mom was actually in the bathroom that night. And I stood outside. I used to joke with her. So I stood outside and I told her that I was going out. And she said, where are you going? And I said, I don't know. She said, when are you coming back? I said, I don't know. And then she said in Ghana, Babulu, as oh no, this is no Bulu. This is for real. This is for real. I'm going. So she knew that I was leaving home. Much later, when I went back to Liberia, she actually came to visit. Wow. And her first response was, oh, my about Phil. And I said, well, I had to leave. Because you guys were busy fighting your post-divorce, sniping and all that. So she didn't know. But my sister recently told me a very interesting story. That while I was gone, My mother actually used to cook. We used to live in Bantama in Kumasi. And she used to cook and invite the neighborhood kids to come and eat, because she assumed that someone else was taking care of me somewhere.
So she was also
So the food that I wasn't there to eat, she was then just giving, which I thought was actually quite touching.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't really stay. I just wanted to focus on what I was doing. So after 1 year, I worked, and I was very happy. I love Sierra Leone. I mean, Freetown, beautiful. Even now, when you go there, it's such a beautiful place. But after a year, I figured, well, for Sierra Leone, it's 7 years high school. For Liberia, it's 3 years high school. Plus I learned. So I decided to go back to Liberia. So that's when I went back to Liberia after the end of 1978. Yeah.
Wow.
I went back there.
Wow. Wow. So you went to Liberia just to do your high school then?
Well, to do that, but again, you had to pay your way.
Pay your way,
So I was working during the day as a reporter on some weekly newspapers, and then going to school at night. And then this was in 1979. They had what they call the Rice Riots, because Liberia was preparing to host the AU, and in order for the government to fund, and I'll write about all these things in the book, because it also goes to the genesis of the Liberian Civil War.
Wow.
Because that incident in 1979, where they withdrew subsidies for rice, which led to riots and all that. And then in 1980, they had the coup, which was like the rice riots were in April 14, 1979, then the coup was April 12, 1980. So it was like a bit of a transition at the time.
Yeah.
So I was still working, schooling, and then 1981, a new newspaper started, the Daily Observer. So there too, I applied. I said, listen, I want to work as a reporter. I was interviewed. The publisher said, no, you're better than a reporter, man. I will make you an editor.
Oh. So straight
from a reporter to an editor. So I became a sub-editor. The structure was that we had an editor-in-chief, and then a sub-editor who was in charge of all the other editors, who reported to the editor-in-chief. But the editor, he's dead now. He actually came from Pram. His name was Rufus Dapo.
Wow.
He used to come to me and say, listen, as editor, I'm supposed to be drinking beer with policymakers. So I'll get ideas to come and write editorials. So you run the show. So I'll be running the show. Yeah, well, a 21-year-old kid with a big head sitting there, controlling everyone. In fact, everyone was older than I was. Sometimes visitors would come to the office, ask for the editor. They would bring them to my office. And then they would stand in the doorway. They're like, no, that cannot be the editor. They're wondering, is that editor? Oh, yes, I'm the editor. I remember once the publisher actually sent me to go and interview the new country director for Citibank. And I went there. The guy said, no. No, you are not even entering my office. Yo. So he called the publisher. He won't let me enter. He said, no, I asked for editor. Who are you? So he called the publisher. And the publisher said, listen, that boy you are trying to prevent, he's the one who's going to determine whether your story gets published or not. I'm not. So he came back and, oh, I'm sorry. You know, back in the States, editors are older people. I can't imagine a young guy like you. So, well, you better imagine that. So I was quite excited. It was very exciting. It was perhaps the most exciting part of my working life. Wow. It's now matching what I'm experiencing at NDPC now. Because the tension, the pressure to meet deadlines, to do all sorts of things, and it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And then, of course, Doe and his dictatorial tendencies and so forth. And so we had to keep up with that.
This is getting so interesting. And we are so almost out of time. But at least I want you to tell, you are in jail in...
Yes.
Doe sent you to jail?
Yeah, Doe actually sent us to jail. I went to work one morning, and then I got a message that there was soldiers and police officers out there. I went out there. Before I could even ask what was going on, they just put me in the back of the pickup. They said, Doe said we should all be sent to jail. In the night before, they actually picked us some people, the publisher and a few others. So we were the last group to be sent. We were there for about 3 weeks.
What did you write?
We had published some letters by some students. That he said the letters were so well written that they couldn't have come from students. So we should produce the students. And we said no. So he got angry. He was then going to Kenya for the OAU major. So before he left, he said, go and arrest those guys.
Okay.
So they just threw us.
It means you're covering the students.
Exactly. But we had to. We couldn't just
you were. Yeah.
So we rather pay the price by going to jail. And it's funny because we were there with some of the former government officials who were part of the government that was overthrown. And we're all there, sleeping on the same floor, eating from the same bowl and everything.
Wow.
It was quite interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've been in jail in Liberia.
Yes.
Dr. Nimoy Thompson.
We survived, but as I said, all
But
those
that's
things
great.
teach
Is
you.
that, what an inspiring story, you know, because
Yeah.
I see, well, he's the Director General of the National Development, you know, but who knows the background and things that you've been through?
That's why the day we launched the long-term development, I actually cried. The Chief Justice was sitting next to me, but she didn't see me crying.
Okay.
I was crying because I was relating the Wogbejeke thing to my own long journey as to how I ended up sitting next to the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana or being in charge of NDPC. And because all those things really taught me hard work, the importance of being optimistic, that no matter how hard you work. And of course, the role of reggae music, I have to pay tribute to that because I found inspiration in some of the best reggae music.
Wow.
Yeah, if you find the time, play Burning Spears' Foggy Road.
Really?
From the album his.
All right.
Foggy Road. Those are the kinds of songs that really inspire me because it talks about long road and the road is foggy, but you keep on going. And so those are the kinds of
songs.
That's
really? I mean, getting out from Kumasi and just hitting the road.
Yes. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Sometimes I wish I could turn back the hands of time and just get an out-of-body experience. And watch myself in action. Because even now, I tell my daughter and she thinks that's crazy. Because I cannot, like, when I arrived in Freetown and just knocking on the doors of complete strangers.
Yes.
And one of them actually took me in and treated me like I was one of her grandchildren. And it was just, but I'm glad that, you know, it strengthened me. That's basically what it says. It strengthened. So I remain optimistic, and that's why I can sometimes even project it to Ghana's own prospects for development. Because ultimately, our national effort is simply the aggregation of the individuals. If you keep focused on these things, you can easily, there's nothing others have done, as Marcus Garvey will say, that we cannot do. What others have done, we can do. Most definitely.
Show it some love, man. Unfortunately, this is all time will allow us, but
no
at
problem
least,
at all. No problem.
Maybe when we get to next time, then we'll get more into
I'll
the
bring
current
my book
stuff.
Then. I'll come and review my book.
Yes, come and review the book.
I'll come and review
but this is
book.
brilliant. I mean,
Thank you.
it's so inspirational. You know, I mean, when I read it, I'm like, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. and you looked at a bee, you know, honestly. What's it, a bee? You look like you're very frail.
No.
Who would have thought that you're a hustler?
Yeah, we had to hustle, man. We had to hustle. Much later, of course, I went to the States. I probably
went to the
bumped
States?
you on, on the subway without knowing.
Very possible.
But I had a very good girlfriend. I have to pay a tribute to her.
Really? She's the one you married?
She actually, we didn't get married, unfortunately, but she actually helped me. I was dating like diplomats and whatnot, so she helped me. She was at the American Embassy, got me a visa, bought my plane ticket actually. I went to American Nigerian Airways.
Really?
And then she put me in school for the first year while I worked in her. So, and we remained friends, even though we didn't get married. I'm back in here and she's still.
And you're married now?
Yeah, I'm married now. Married to a Ghanaian, but she's still in the States. She's even the godmother of my daughter and everything.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But she helped me. The day I finished my PhD, I actually called her and told her. All she said was, well, I make good investments.
Show some love, man. So we have to. I'm going to call you back, man.
No problem.
We have to take it. We have to take it now from where you are living off now. You know, U.S. University, and then being Director General of the National Development.
Terrific.
It's very. But it's good to get the story.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your coming.
Thank you. No problem.
Show some love for him one more time, man. And this back.